So I wanted to give a quick little breakdown of essentially ProMotion displays versus 60 hertz displays. Now most of us know this by now. If you're using a ProMotion display, things are going to look a lot smoother and everything, but how much smoother is it? Now I just did a little bit of a comparison between 120 hertz, 90 hertz, and 60 hertz, probably actually like 2 years ago, which is actually pretty insane. But I just want to focus in on iPhones now because historically, in my opinion, I do feel like iPhone 60 hertz displays are very, very smooth, and Apple has historically done a great job at making these phones displays super smooth. Now, this is an iPhone 13, this is a 13 Pro, but the 13 display, in my opinion, doesn't seem as smooth as some of the older iPhones. So I went and took my iPhone 13 Pro, which I have here, and I took an iPhone 10s display. And what I did was I pretty much opened some applications. I did film that portion at 60 frames per second. So this whole video, I think maybe actually upscale to 60 frames per second. I actually don't know what I'm going to do with it. But essentially what I found was as you're going through and you're scrolling through and you're making things look good, I mean, you're just kind of, opening up apps and everything like that. 60 hertz displays still are very smooth on iPhones, but the 120 hertz panels that Apple has made on their iPhones are so smooth and so good that it really does kind of rival a lot of other phones that other manufacturers have made. Now, first of all, one of the biggest advantages of using something like a ProMotion display like here is with the smoothness that you're getting. Whenever you load up an application and you're going through and you're using that device, you are getting a very smooth frame rate. Now, a big caveat here is that not every application is suitable with 120 hertz. So if you're using a ProMotion display, not every single application will utilize that ProMotion display. If you're using a lot of Apple's applications, all of them will pretty much run for the most part at 120 frames, which is really nice. But if you start loading up some other applications, if you load up like Stack, for example, this is a dumb example, but if you're using some of these apps, not every single one will utilize those specific, frame rates. So that is a big thing to keep in mind. Now, other games and applications, if we look at Clash of Clans, for example, they have the opportunity of going up to that 120 hertz, frame rate, which I think is really cool. But like I said, not every application, but things like the App Store and everything utilize that. But when you look at the 60 hertz on like an iPhone 13, if you never used it, you're really not going to care too much. I personally feel like this panel is still smooth enough for a lot of people, and I really wouldn't go from like an iPhone 13 to a 13 Pro just because of the display itself, but that is one of the big advantages in my opinion, and that is a really cool thing. So we all know in terms of the screen and everything, the 13 Pro is definitely going to win here. However, there's an area where it may not be the best example of utilizing a phone like the 13 Pro with ProMotion displays, and that is with the battery life. Historically, in my opinion, ProMotion and 120 hertz displays do take up a little bit more battery life than the 60 hertz on the iPhone 13s and so on and so forth. But there's an advantage here with a variable refresh rate, like on an iPhone 13 Pro and in the future the 14 Pro and all those other ones. You have to remember that this type of device has a variable refresh rate, so it can go from, I believe it's less than 60 hertz. I think it's like maybe 10 hertz or whatever it is. It can go from below 60 hertz to all the way up to 120 hertz. So although it does take a little bit more battery life when it goes up to 120 hertz, it can also save a little bit of battery life when it can go down to 10 hertz or whatever it is. With the iPhone 13, it stays consistent at 60 hertz. Now, I will say, notoriously, you're probably still going to be getting better battery life from like an iPhone 13, than an iPhone 13 Pro, but that is a really big thing to keep in mind. This is just persistent at 60 hertz, where the iPhone 13 Pro can go down to something like 10 hertz or whatever it is. Now, this is also why things like always-on displays, when you have a variable refresh rate, they always end up working and saving a little bit more battery on phones like an iPhone 13 Pro that can go down to 10 hertz rather than staying at a consistent 60 hertz like on an iPhone 13. So that is another big thing to keep in mind. You might be getting a little bit more battery life from something like an iPhone 13 Pro with that type of ProMotion display than on something like an iPhone that has a 60 hertz display. So what is the verdict? Which one is the better one? Well, it really depends on which way you look at it. Personally, I think a variable refresh rate like on a 120 hertz panel like the 13 Pro is always the better way to go. This is the top tier best panel Apple can make, and when they make the iPhone 14s without the notch and all those other ones, these are going to be very solid devices forever. They're going to be beautiful phones and I can't wait for it. But I still think for an OLED display, the iPhone 13 display is still more than capable enough, and I think this is still a very good screen as well. Would it be the first panel I would recommend buying? I mean, if you have the choice, then I would probably recommend going for something like a ProMotion display. But if not, I still think the iPhone 13 60Hz panel is still more than capable enough. And from the tests that I've done and historically of owning phones that do have 120Hz panels, and there are many phones that even have beyond 120Hz panels, I think those are always the better ways to go. But I'm still in love with the iPhone 13 display. I think it's still very good. But the 13 Pro is definitely the winner here. And this is by far the better phone when it comes down to the whole entire longevity of owning a phone and wanting to keep a phone for as long as possible. But there are still some few advantages of buying something that has a 60Hz panels. So that's kind of how both these panels somewhat kind of compare in terms of the smoothness and everything along those lines. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.